Hi, everybody. We can go ahead and get started. So welcome. Thank you for attending Home Buying 101. We're going to talk about everything you need to know to buy a house in today's market. And just housekeeping, if you have any questions throughout the presentation, please put a question in your Q&A box. I probably won't see it right when you submit it, but when we get to the end, we'll have lots of time to answer questions. Okay, so to introduce myself before we get started, my name is Jody Delansky. I'm a licensed realtor in PA. I work for Richard A. Zuber Realty. We have 3 offices in Boyertown, Pottstown, and Royersford, and a satellite office in Morgantown. This year, just to brag a little bit about my brokerage, we won Pottstown Mercury's 2020 Reader Choice Award. We win this pretty frequently, so I don't know exactly how many times we won it now, but we got it this year, so people love working with us and with our agents. So today we're going to go over a couple of things. The big things we're going to hit is today's market, what that looks like, and what it means for you as a buyer. We're also going to talk about how much it costs to buy a home, which is one of the questions I get asked most frequently. And then we're going to look at the step-by-step process of buying a home. So to start, we're going to talk about the market. And if you've read any articles recently about real estate, or if you've been having any sort of real estate discussions with a professional, or maybe just with your friends, you've probably heard somebody say it is a seller's market right now, and it is. What that means is we have low inventory. There's not a lot of houses for sale right now, and we have more buyers than we have listings available. So because of that, there's a lot more competition for the listings that we do have. So I wanted to show you this chart because the struggle is real sometimes for buyers in today's market. Houses are going really, really quickly, and they're going for listing price or over listing price. So as you can see on this chart, and by the way, this is pulled from our Bright MLS, which is the MLS that I belong to and all the realtors in the area belong to. This is for the month of July, and you can see the school districts that I use for analysis are all the ones surrounding Boyertown. I pulled this about a week ago. So most of the houses that sold in our area in July were on the market between 0 and 30 days. Probably some of them for only a few hours. And you may have experienced this if you saw a house for sale on Zillow early Monday morning, texted it to your husband or your realtor. By the time they get to see it later that afternoon, it's already under contract or it's already pending. That's been happening a lot, even to me and my clients. So it's really important for you as a buyer to kind of have all your ducks in a row. We'll talk about that later, what that means, having a pre-approval before you starting to go see houses, and to act quickly when you find one that you like. Over on the right, the column that says average sold price compared to the original price, the houses that are selling really quick are selling for asking price or slightly above. That's what that 0.66% means there on that top number. But even the ones that have been on the market for over 181 days are still selling for 90% of their asking price. So this is not the kind of market that you're going to go into offering $150,000 for a house that's listed at $200,000. It's not the kind of market that you're going to have really intense negotiations back and forth with the seller so you can try and get a bargain on a house. It's just, that's not what's happening right now, because if you are trying to do that and kind of whittle the seller down and bargain with them, somebody else is going to swoop in with a higher offer. In addition to not spending a lot of days on the market and selling for asking price or over, another thing you should know before you start your house search is a lot of times you'll be up against competition. So there will be multiple offers on each listing. So we're going to talk a little bit later about how to make your offer the best offer possible. Another piece of data about today's market, again, this is from the school districts around our area. This is how people are financing right now. And most people don't walk around with, $200,000 in their bank account. I know I don't. So not a lot of people are paying cash, especially first-time home buyers. Now, I would venture to think that there are more cash buyers now than other times in the market when it's a less competitive marketplace. Because everybody knows cash is king, and that's a seller's #1 preference of buyer financing. But most people are getting conventional mortgage, and we're going to break down a little bit the different types of mortgage. that you can get and the advantages and disadvantages and interest rates for each of those types of mortgage. So most people are getting conventional mortgages. The government-backed loans, FHA, the USDA, and the VA loans are a lot less than that. So I say this because as a buyer, if you can go conventional, do it in this marketplace. Most people are. It'll make your offer a little bit better than others. So I say all this, I'm telling you that it's tough to be a buyer right now. You have to be really aggressive. So you might think, well, why would I buy a house right now then? Like, why am I even on this webinar? You are on this webinar because of this chart right here. So this is the interest rates for the last 50 years. This is from Freddie Mac, which is one of the biggest loan originators in the United States. And you can see all the way over to the right of the chart at 2020, we are at an all-time low, lowest numbers on this chart. So even a few years ago, 2018 probably, interest rates were at 5%. And at that time, people thought that was a great deal, but now they've gone even lower. So you may be, if there's a $200,000 house, you may be paying, I don't know, $210,000 or $215,000 for it to beat out other offers. So you'll have a bigger principal to pay off, but your interest rate is going to be much lower than in other times throughout the market history. So your monthly mortgage payment really won't be any higher. It all comes out in the wash kind of. And we'll see in a few slides how that interest rate can make such a difference in your monthly payment. And I should mention too, when we're talking about mortgages, this is for a 30-year fixed year mortgage. This means if you apply for a mortgage tomorrow and they give you the fantastic interest rate of 3%, that's the interest rate throughout the life of the loan. So in 10 years, maybe the interest rates go back up into double-digit numbers, right? You're still paying 3% interest rate for the life of the loan. That's why I keep posting, realtors keep saying, like, even though it's a seller's market, get out there and buy a house. You know, it's competitive, you have to be aggressive, but you're gonna get a fantastic interest rate. So that's kind of the layout of the market today. I wanted to tackle the big question. This is the number one question I get, or when I talk to people that have already bought or sold houses with other realtors, I say, well, what's one thing, if you could go back in time and learn more about one thing, what would that be? Or what do you wish your realtor would have explained better? And the number one thing is people want to know upfront, how much does it cost to buy a house? Like, how much money are we talking right now? So we're going to talk about that. So the cost to buy a house is a combination of two things, your down payment and your closing fees. And the down payment means the amount that you're paying on your loan up front. So are you putting 5% down, 10%, 20%, 30%, etc. And then your closing fees is a conglomerate of a bunch of smaller fees that are charged by the title company, your mortgage company, maybe from the real estate brokerage you're working with. A lot of things go into that closing fees: transfer tax, prorated property taxes, first year premium of homeowners insurance, appraisal and credit reports. A lot of things go into those closing fees. So for example that I'm going to give you right now, let's just imagine you're buying a house and the purchase price is $200,000. Now let's just imagine that your closing fees come out to a nice even $10,000. This is probably around accurate. I've seen like $9,000 to $12,000. But just for simplicity's sake, let's just go with 10,000. So we're going to start on the left with a conventional loan. This is, if you remember the chart from a few slides ago, this is how most people are financing their home purchases in today's market. For this loan, the minimum down payment you have to pay is 6%. This is in most cases, and I say most cases because if you really shop around lenders, especially the local lenders, like I know Tompkins Visk offers some products that are conventional loans, but you only have to put 4% down and you can get more of a seller's assist. So there are some variations out there, but for the most part, when we're talking about a conventional loan, you're putting a minimum of 6% down. So that means you're putting down $12,000, 6% of $200,000. And then you have your estimated closing fees of 10 grand. So your total due at settlement would be $22,000. If you're asking for a seller's assist, it's going to be less than that. And a seller's assist is a really great way for you to have, it's a tool that you can use to have the seller pay for some of your closing costs if you don't have $22,000 in your pocket right now. This is really popular, especially for first-time home buyers, people that aren't just walking around with thousands of dollars in an account somewhere. However, I will warn you, in today's market, if you don't need a seller's assist, don't take one. If you need one, absolutely use it. But if you can, borrow money from your parents or pull from your savings account or maybe your 401k, I would suggest that, just because when a seller gives you a seller's assist, that means they're netting a little less from the deal. So a conventional loan says, okay, you can get a maximum seller's assist of 3%. If you take that maximum, at settlement, you'll be paying $16,000. So this is, you don't pay anything throughout the real estate process until you get to that settlement table, and then you hand over a cashier's check for $16,000. If you don't have that much money in your account, don't worry. You don't need that much money, because we're going to look at the two other loan options right now that require significantly less than the conventional. FHA loan is a government-backed loan from the Federal Housing Administration, and they require less of a down payment and offer more of a seller's assist. So your minimum down payment is 3.5%, plus your closing fees. Due at settlement would be 17 grand. You can get a max seller's assist of 6%, so that's double than what a conventional loan offered. So at settlement, you'd be paying only $5,000. USDA loans, these are probably my favorite kind of loans and the kind of loans that I wish more people knew about. This is a 0% down loan, absolutely 0% down. You still have to pay your closing fees, so total due at settlement would be 10 grand. For this, you wouldn't even have to use your maximum seller's assist of 6%, because then you would go in the negatives. So let's say you only ask for 4% seller's assist, and that makes your total due at settlement only $2,000. And I've seen this work out really, really well. Last winter, I had a client settle on a house around $160,000. He did a USDA loan, and he did ask for some seller's assist, 4 or 5%, I believe. And he settled on his home for $1,500 right before Christmas. And like, if you're moving into an apartment and they're making you pay first, last, and security anyway, you're probably going to be paying more than $1,500 out of pocket. And this guy was smart, and he used his tools and resources, did it right, and he got a house for that much. So before I switch, people usually say, how much should I have in my bank account to start home shopping, excuse me. And as you can see, the conventional loan, around $20,000, that's your ideal amount to have in your savings account. You can clearly settle for a lot less, but the more you have saved up, the more you can offer purchase price, the less you'll need a seller's assist, and the more wiggle room you'll have to negotiate. This is a map. So USDA is my favorite kind of loan, but the one downside is that it is area specific. This loan is backed by the United States Department of Agriculture, so they want this loan to be utilized in more rural parts of the country. Luckily for us, the majority of land around here is in USDA approved areas. So on this map, everything that's in white, that's not like colored yellow, that's okay. So Bartow, Oley, Fleetwood, Kutztown, Red Hill, even down towards Limerick and Collegeville, over towards, Springford area and O&J. That's all okay. You can get a USDA loan in all those areas. The only times you can't is when you get up to Reading, Allentown, towards Philly, or the borough of Pottstown. And again, just a reminder, if you have any questions while I'm going, feel free to submit them in the Q&A thing, and we'll get to them at the end. Okay, oops, let me go back one. The other big number that we talk about is your monthly mortgage payment. So you have what's due at settlement, and then you have your monthly mortgage payment, and you should be, thinking about both. So we're going to look at your monthly mortgage payment for each of the 3 types of loans that we were just looking at. Still using our purchase price home of $200,000. We're just estimating taxes would be $3,500 a year. Maybe your homeowner's insurance $800 a year, and your mortgage insurance $75 a month. One thing I forgot to mention about a conventional loan, you may be thinking, well, if it requires more of a down payment, I can get seller's assist. Why would I even want to use a conventional loan? Why is that the most popular loan right now? The first reason is because you can get out of mortgage insurance after you put 20% down on the principal. So if you settle and put 20% down, on your down payment, you will never have mortgage insurance. If you only put 10% down or 6% down, like our example was, you'll have mortgage insurance until you get up to that 20%, and then that will drop off your monthly payment. FHA and USDA loans have mortgage insurance for the life of the loan, so you can't really get out of it unless you get some special sort of program, which I'll give you resources at the end for. Another reason people really like conventional loans is they are just generally less strict. What I mean by that is FHA and USDA have some very specific things that they look for. For instance, a well can't be within 100 feet of the septic tank. The appraisers go in and they call for a lot more repairs than if you were getting a conventional loan. So if you're looking for either an older house or something that's more of a fixer-upper, you would probably have to go conventional. So that's the upside of it. Okay, so back to monthly mortgage payment. Conventional loan right now is at a 3.5% interest rate. That's super good. I remember 2 years ago, that's what FHA was at, and people thought that was an amazing deal. And now FHA and USDA are even lower at 2.8%. And these change all the time. I just looked these up, so these are accurate as of today, but they could change or go up tomorrow. So your monthly mortgage payment is a compilation of 4 different things. So when you pay your monthly mortgage, you're paying for the principal and interest on your house. You're paying for your property taxes, which is just that $3,500 a year figure divided by 12. Your property insurance and your mortgage insurance. And again, the mortgage insurance can drop off in certain situations. So really all of the loans you're looking at around between $1,200 and $1,300 a month. So the loans really have a huge impact of what you're paying at settlement, less of an impact when it comes to your monthly payment. I did some quick figures down in the orange bar at the bottom just to show you that if interest rates go up to 5%, how that would affect your monthly mortgage payment. And as you can see, they all go up by about $200. So lock in those interest rates now while it's really low. Okay, so this is the step-by-step process to purchasing a home. Step 1 would be to get a pre-approval. And we'll talk about why this is important, but first let me explain what it is. A pre-approval is when you meet with the lender, your bank, and they give you, it's a piece of paper, it's a letter from them saying that you are pre-approved for a mortgage, basically meaning if everything stays the same in your financial situation, there is a 99.9% chance that we will give you a mortgage once you enter under contract on the house that you want to buy. This is really important for a couple reasons. One, meeting with the lender to get a pre-approval will tell you first if you can even get a mortgage at that point. You might sit down with the lender to get pre-approved and they say, well, I can't give you a mortgage yet because you need to be at your job another 2 months, or your credit score is a 610 and you need a minimum 620 to get into my program. So they can help you kind of figure out what you have to do to get to the place where you are mortgage ready. If you are mortgage ready, it's still important to get a pre-approval because it will narrow down your search and your scope. Because the last thing you want to do is think you can afford a $200,000 house, go look at all these beautiful houses, and then realize you can only afford $130,000. Because then every house that you see after that, you're going to be super disappointed in, and you're going to feel like you wasted your time. We don't want to do that. We want to know what you can afford so we know what price range you should be looking at. The last reason this is really important, especially in today's market, is because if you don't have this when you want to submit an offer, you might not have time to run back to your lender and get one before that house that you want is gone. So if you see a house Friday night at 5 p.m., you love it, you want to put an offer in, but your realtor says, okay, well, I need your pre-approval. The listing agent won't accept our offer without that pre-approval. Well, what are you going to do? Are you going to call the lender on Monday morning and get it? You can, but the house will probably be under contract by then. So this is something you want to have. You can just keep it in your email. You can send it to your realtor when you get it, whatever. We just want that. So when we send an offer over, we can include that pre-approval in there. After you get that, you can start the house shopping part, which is the fun part. And we are still doing showings, even though COVID is, kind of still a thing out there. We're just doing things slightly different. You have to do a little bit more paperwork, and some houses may ask you to wear gloves or little booties or just sanitize when you're in there. But this is the awesome part. I do want to mention, I get asked this question a lot, and every time I get asked this question, people say, I know this is a stupid question, but I get asked it all the time, so it can't be a stupid question if that many people think it. So any licensed realtor that has access to MLS and is a member of MLS can show any property, even if there's a RE/MAX or a Century 21 or a whatever sign in their front yard, as long as that house is for sale and listed on MLS, our multi-list system, I can show it, or any realtor can show it. You know, it doesn't have to have a Zuber sign in the yard for me to show it. So you get with your realtor and you go house shopping, you go see some houses, and finally you find one that you love. At that point, you would submit an offer. And what that is you just sit down with your realtor and do paperwork. And we're going to go over, and I believe it's the next slide, how to make your offer really, really great. After you submit an offer, hopefully the seller loves it so much that you will be under contract, and we'll go over what that means. And after you're under contract for a month or two and get everything kind of settled in that process, then you go to settlement, where you sign all the documents for the deed and the title of your house and for your mortgage, and you get the keys to your new house. So let's talk about putting in an offer and how to give the best possible offer. And when you are submitting an offer, keep in mind that it's kind of a meet you halfway situation between the buyer and the seller, right? So I have listed homes, I have represented sellers, so I can say, listen, this is what sellers want. This is an ideal situation for the seller, but that might not be your ideal situation as a buyer. So you kind of give a little leeway both and negotiate and meet somewhere in the middle. So the tips that I'm about to give you is to put the absolute best offer out there. You may not be able to do all of these, and that's okay. We're just trying to get to the best offer we can, so yours is accepted over the other ones. Like I mentioned, you probably will be up against other offers. I just had one last week. Really sweet couple. We submitted an offer over asking price, no seller's assist, conventional mortgage, and they still lost. They were up against 17 other offers. It's just how it is right now. So be ready. So price is pretty much the biggest thing that will make an offer good or bad. And like we talked about before, you want to offer asking price or maybe slightly over. Don't go crazy. Don't offer, thousands and thousands over. But if you want to go over 5,000 or 10,000, you're probably in the ballpark of what's normal in today's market. Seller's assist, like I said, if you can get away with not using it, go for that option. If you can ask mom or borrow from savings. But if you need it, if you absolutely need it, of course, you can ask for one. Settlement, the seller wants settlement as quick as possible. I want to be paid as quick as possible, right? So they want to be paid as quick as possible too. I think we all do. We all share that in common. So they are looking for an offer that will get them to settlement table as quick as possible and not fall through while netting them the highest profit. Now, the different kinds of loans will dictate how long the process will be until you can settle. For a conventional loan, you're looking at about 30 days. For FHA or a USDA loan, it's more like 45 to 60 days. Right now, because of COVID, I would lean more towards the 60 days side just because things get backed up. If you are paying cash, you'd probably still need at least 2 weeks just to get, title and homeowners insurance and utilities all in line. So you're probably looking at between a month or two. The deposit, we haven't really talked about. So the deposit, sometimes called the earnest money, is money that you submit with your offer to show how serious of a buyer you are. The nationwide average for deposit money is between 2 to 3% of the purchase price of the house. In this area, in my experience, we get away with a little under that, a little under 2%, so maybe 1 to 2% instead of 2 to 3%. But in this market, since it is more competitive, you might be wise to go up a little bit higher than you normally would. So this is the money that is on the line if you just change your mind and walk away from the deal, right? You break up with your boyfriend, you don't want to move in with him anymore, or all of a sudden you don't want a ranch or you want a two-story. So if that happens, you lose your deposit. So when you give a deposit, the seller knows like, okay, they're serious. They're not just going to change their mind and walk away. Side note, if anything comes up in like your inspections or anything like that, and that's why you back out of the deal, you get your deposit money back. So most of the time you won't lose your deposit money, but worst case scenario, is you do. So don't put down anything crazy that you're uncomfortable with. Don't go submit a $20,000 deposit because you could lose that. But maybe in this market, a $3,000 or $4,000 deposit would make your offer look a little bit better. They're also going to look at the type of financing that you get. Cash is king, and then sellers prefer conventional and FHA or USDA. They're also going to look at where you're getting your mortgage from. I won't say the name of the lender, but I recently had a buyer that wanted to use a certain lender, and the seller, it almost didn't go through because the seller was very skeptical because they heard really bad things about that mortgage company. So it's important to work with a lender that, you know, I think is local. Local is good. They'll come to settlement. They'll be able to meet you face to face to sit down. And they work with a company with a really good reputation, because you risk having your offer thrown out if the seller, you know, thinks they have a bad reputation. Inspections, that's what like home inspections, water test, septic test, etc. From a seller's perspective, if there are no tests, that's awesome, because that's less of a headache for them. Now, as a buyer, especially a first-time home buyer, I usually suggest at least a home inspection. Some of the loans will require certain tests. So you, like for instance, FHA, if it's well water, you need a water test. If it's not, you don't. And you also need a wood destroying insect test to test for termites and powder post beetles and other stuff like that. So do whatever inspections make you feel comfortable, make you know that, you know, you're moving into this house and you know what you're getting. But from a seller's perspective, the less the better. Contingencies, what I mean by that is kind of any additional paperwork that says this deal will go through if, fill in the blank. So common ones are, this deal will go through if the house appraises for, you know, what I'm paying for it. I'm offering $20,000 over asking price. It has to appraise for $20,000 over asking price, or else I went out of the deal. Another really common one is, this deal will go through if I sell the house that I currently live in. So for a seller, they don't want to deal with that. They don't want to wait for you to sell your house, because that might not go through, or you might not sell yours for 6 months. They just don't want the extra headache. So if you can avoid those contingencies, do it. If you can't, you can't, you know, but just know that this is what a seller is looking for. The last thing I want to talk about when we're talking about giving an offer is an escalation clause. And we are seeing a lot of these right now in the market. So just know that this is kind of like a tool in your back pocket if you need it. Escalation clause basically says, I will pay, say, $200,000 for this house. I will also pay $1,000 more than the highest bid, up to $215,000, right? So if you're the only offer, then that escalation clause doesn't really come into play. But right now in today's market, you're probably not the only offer, right? So let's just say you put in the offer without escalation clause. Somebody else comes in and offers $210,000. Now you're going to pay $1,000 more than them, so you're going to pay $211,000 for that house. So it's just kind of a way to like up your offer price based on what other people are offering. I think it's a great tool in today's market. I do see your questions coming in, and I will get to them with you. So if all that goes great and you submit an awesome contract and the seller loves it and they sign it, then you are under contract. Whew. And this is where the real work begins, because up till now it's been fun. You've been going to see houses, you've been going to open houses. It's all fun and dandy. And now the real work begins. So when you're under contract, this is when you actually apply for your mortgage. Part of that will be the appraisal. So the appraiser is going to come out and make sure, you know, the house is appropriately valued. There's no big repairs that need to be fixed. This is when you're going to order and complete your inspections. You're going to get the home inspector out there. You're going to get your termite test done. You're going to respond to the seller and ask for any repairs that you want based on those inspections. You're going to order your title and your homeowner's insurance. And then once we get closer to settlement, maybe a week or two before, call your utility company, set up your utilities. And then either the day before or the morning of settlement, you'll do your pre-settlement walkthrough, which is kind of like your last chance to see the property before it's in your name. So you go and make sure there's not, 2 inches of water in the basement, or the fridge is staying because it said it was staying on the agreement. So it's kind of your last chance to look everything over. After that, you go to settlement. Very exciting. In the old days, back before COVID, it was a party at the conference table, and it was the buyer, the seller, each of their respective agents, the title clerk, the lender. There are a lot of people at settlement now because of COVID. We are inviting less people to settlement and sometimes splitting people into different rooms. But the premise is still the same. You leave with the keys to your new home. Okay, so I am going to go check out questions. Okay, so these were great questions. So somebody said, do you help me get a pre-approval? I'll answer these questions and I'll go back to answering my frequently asked questions that I was anticipating people asking. So I can help you get a pre-approval, or I don't have to. The realtor's not required to be involved in that process, but I prefer to for a few reasons. One, it might make you feel more comfortable. If you're a first-time home buyer and you don't know what all these terms mean, you kind of might feel uncomfortable sitting down with a fancy lender. You know, you might want me or your realtor to be there to kind of answer any questions you have and just have somebody that you know and trust in the room with you. Another reason it might be a good idea is because I'm in the loop then. I know what's going on. You know, if I am there when you're talking to the lender about like, okay, we're going to do the FHA mortgage with a 4% seller's assist when we're at this purchase price, then I already know that. So when you go to make an offer, I already have that knowledge. You know, I don't have to rely on you to say, well, the lender told me this, and then it can get kind of distorted sometimes and then I have to call the lender. So no, I don't have to be there when you talk to your lender, but I can be there, and maybe it's a good idea if I am there. Another question is home inspection required or optional to get a mortgage? Right now, and this could change at any time probably, right? But right now in Pennsylvania, home inspections are not required for any of these mortgages. I think they're a really good idea. I got a home inspection on my house that I bought. I didn't have to, it wasn't required. The seller said, listen, I'm not fixing anything. I don't have the money. And I said, well, that's okay. So I spent, $400 or $500 on a home inspection, but those home inspectors really go over the house with a fine-tooth comb. And I learned so much about this property, and I'm a realtor, right? I know a lot about houses. So I learned more about the house going through it with the home inspector. I could ask them any questions I want. So it's not required, but I really think it's money well spent. Okay, so those are all the questions I have so far. And I'm going to go over the ones that are on the screen, but if you have any others, feel free to type them in and submit them. People ask me a lot, well, how much do I have to pay a realtor? How does a realtor get paid? I had a very adorable showing a couple months ago. It was the first showing that I had with them, and they pulled out their checkbook to pay me after the showing. And I had to explain that's not how this works. Realtors don't get paid until settlement. That's fair, right? We don't get paid until you get your house. So we get our commission from the seller. The seller actually pays the commission for both their agent and the agent that's representing the buyer. As a buyer, you will probably have to pay a very minimal charge on your settlement costs to your realtor. I mean, like maybe a couple $100 depending on the brokerage and the individual realtor. I can tell you for me, I charge a $295 fee to my buyers. And that's no matter if you see one house or 60 houses. That's the maximum that you, the buyer, will pay me is $295. The rest of my commission I get from the seller, just because I think, buyers, you're already paying for enough. I will say though, watch what you sign. There is an option on the buyer agency contract that a realtor can say, X amount is due upfront at the signing of this contract. So some realtors will require you to pay like a deposit or a lump sum upfront before you even start seeing houses with them. I don't like that. I don't think it's fair. I don't do that. So if you're working with another realtor, just be careful of what you're signing. Minimum credit score needed to get a mortgage, typically 620. That's the number most lenders throw out there. How long should I shop for homes? Until you find the one that you like. There's no specific formula. There's no specific timeline. I have shown houses, or I've had clients, I should say, that I've shown literally one house to, and they loved it and they wanted to put an offer on it. And I'm kind of like, are you sure? Just because I didn't want them rushing into anything. But sometimes the first one you see is the one that you love, is exactly what you want. So in that case, well, you don't really need to look at any others. I've also had buyers that are more picky or less ready, kind of, had cold feet, even though they liked it, they didn't know if they were ready. They always wanted to sleep on it and then the house would be gone. That saw, maybe 50 homes over the course of a few months or 6 months or whatever. So really it's the answer is just very individual. It's whatever works for you until you find the house that you want to move into. Can I still see houses during COVID? Yes, you just have to fill out a paper to answer a few questions that you don't have COVID, you're not experiencing symptoms, you haven't been exposed, and maybe if the listing agent is requiring you to wear gloves or, maybe not touch light switches. So we just have to work around that. Once my offer is accepted, how long do we wait until settlement? Kind of mentioned that. About a month if you're doing a conventional loan, a month and a half to 2 months if you're doing an FHA or a USDA loan. So I don't see any other questions. So I'll just move on. Here's my contact information. I want you to have this. I'll also email it out after the seminar. That's my cell number, my email address. I respond very quickly to email and text. Phone will probably take me longer to get back to you. My social media, Facebook and Instagram, I'm always posting, articles and current market news, current interest rates, local happenings. So be sure to follow me on social media. And then my site and blog where I post my blog posts is below. And I'll email this out. Last slide I have, here are some resources if you want to know a little bit more about the loans. The top one, the PHFA, if you remember a while ago, I said that you might be able to get out of mortgage insurance if you use a special program. This is a special program that I was talking about. PHFA offers different things, lower interest rates sometimes, tax credit, and no mortgage insurance programs. So that's a really good resource to check into. Make sure you bring it up with your lender to see if you qualify for any of those additional programs. The FHA and USDA loans that we talked about they both have purchase price limits. So there's some links to see the purchase price. USDA has income limits. FHA does not. So you can check out your income limits based on your county at that link. And then the bottom link is to get a pre-approval. That's a link to Jeff Krause's website for Mortgage America. I've done the majority of my deals with him. He's great. He gets it done really quickly. His office staff is wonderful. I highly, highly recommend him. A couple more questions came in while I was doing that. So someone said, so I should get together to do a pre-approval as my first step, right? Yep, that would be your first step. After tonight, if you want to meet with me again or chat with me on the phone just to kind of get, some specifics worked out for your situation specifically, we can do that. If you want kind of, guidance or you want me to go along to your pre-approval appointment with you, we can absolutely do that. If you're comfortable doing it yourself, maybe your uncle is a mortgage broker and you want to get a mortgage through him, then you can do that too. But let's start talking right away if you're ready and we can kind of go through it together. I think there was someone in the chat. Sorry, this was a long question. Could interest rates jump up to like 10% within the next month? Or in the next 6 months, I guess it says. Probably not. They will probably get higher, but probably not that quickly. But who knows? I don't have a crystal ball. I guess anything could happen. They will probably start to rise soon just because they're so low right now. They're going to hit zero soon if they keep going down. So I would think they would start to kind of even out and start to rise a little bit again. But I doubt they'll go up to 10% within the next 6 months, maybe back up to, 4 or 5% within the next 6 months. But again, that's hard to say. We just kind of follow it and see where it goes. Okay, well, thank you for people that submitted questions and thank you for everyone that came on. I'm going to flip back and put my contact information up here again. So get with me if you have any questions. This was kind of an overview of your standard sale. If you have more specific questions, you're thinking about getting land or you're thinking about, foreclosures or doing flips, investments, anything like that that's more specific, I would love to talk to you about those things individually. If you see any houses out there that you want to go see, let's go see them. That's the best part of my job. I love seeing houses. I become a better realtor every time I go out and see a house. So I will follow up with each of you and I thank you for attending. And I hope everyone has a great night.